Hello and a very warm welcome to another session of The Change Exchange. My guest, Melusi Tshabalala, an advertising man who has now found sudden fame because of something he started as just a Facebook post in the first place. But we'll get to that. We'll tell you all about it. Melusi, welcome. Thank you for being here, for taking time.
Thank you for having me, Zanwana.
How did you get into advertising?
It's a convoluted story, but my aunt, who's now passed on, worked for a family that was in advertising production. So they had a production house, and so I was interested in knowing what it is that they do, and so I picked up my interest there. And when I finished matric, though, I mean, no one in those days tells you anything about advertising, you know. So I wanted to go into advertising, but I was steered towards engineering. But fortunately, we couldn't afford to send me to university, so I didn't have to go do engineering. But in that year, straight after university, I then spent time making phone calls, trying to get a job. And I called this placement agency, right? And I'd found this job in the newspaper. And this woman, she said, look, you're not qualified for this job that you're phoning for, but come see me and let's see if we can find you something. And so she got me odd jobs, like weird stuff. And at some point I was a waiter. And then one day she called me and she said, look, you seem like a really bright guy, you know, so if you can get yourself into an advertising school, I will pay your first year's tuition and you then need to find a bursary to pay for your second year, because it was a 2-year course.
Yes, how fortuitous.
Yeah,
that you came
very
across a
much
person
so.
like
No,
that.
no, very
Yeah.
much so. So I went and I went to the AAA advertising school, and this was in 1998. And when I got there, I didn't know what courses or majors or anything of the sort they have, because so I asked them, I said, what is it that I
That
can
you do?
study? Yeah. And they took me through a list that said art direction. I said, what does that do? And they told me, I said, no, I don't want to do that. Account management, what does that do? I said, no, I don't want to do that. Eventually, they'd gone through everything, and I didn't want to do any of it. And I said to them, is that it? Is there nothing else? And they said, well, there's copywriting. I said, okay, tell me about that. And they told me, I said, I'd like to do that. They said, oh, but you're not a first language English speaker. I said, I don't get what the point of that is.
So are 99% of the country around
Yeah,
me.
you know, I
and your
said-
market.
And they said, no, most of it is in English. I said, okay, just give me, and they, in fact, and then they gave me a test, right? They gave me a test. I went home, I did the test, I returned it, and they accepted me, right? And then I went back to this woman and I said, I've been accepted. But fortunately, at that very same time, there was a man who worked at an ad agency whom she was representing as he was trying to find employment elsewhere. And he then told her that, no, at the agency where he worked, they were giving away bursaries. So I got that bursary, so she didn't have to pay for me, and I got that bursary.
Sure, networks.
Yeah, but I
One
mean,
person leads to another, leads to another.
that's how I got into advertising. Yeah.
And once you started, I mean, you said that every course they mentioned was not something you wanted to do. Once you started studying it and doing it, was it what you wanted to do?
You know, to be honest, it was a very foreign environment for me. Even though I had been fortunate enough to get one bursary to go to a private school, another bursary to go to a different school, I had never actually had white classmates, right? So that was my first encounter with white people of my age, and it wasn't always pleasant, you know. And so that was a shock. Another thing that really, really shocked me is when I arrived the first day, I was a bit late because I'd never been to the area before, so you get lost with the buses. The parking lot was full of cars, and I remember saying to the guy I was sitting next to, oh, this school must have a lot of lecturers. And he said, no, those are the students' cars. And for me, I couldn't comprehend, you know what I mean? Like, students' cars, how do students have cars? So that was a disconnect. It was a completely new world for me. But when you started studying, you could see that even the lecturer, this was new for her, having black kids in her class. So we were all trying to adjust.
What percentage, more or less, in how big a class?
I think if there were 20 students, 4 were black. Yeah. And
So very much a minority.
very much a minority. And so it was hard also to get our stories across, to get ourselves understood, but also to get across the fact that we know what we're talking about. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of that stuff would relate to speaking to black consumer, but you'd still get told that you're wrong. And that, so there was that struggle, but there's still that struggle in advertising anyway. And
so you find that there are preconceived ideas that you just can't get past.
yeah. So, you know, I think because certain people don't exist in their own world, it's hard for them to accept that they don't know everything. Do you know what I mean? Because the moment they say they have to accept that they don't know everything, they feel as if their value diminishes. Do you know what I mean? So they have to remain in control, which is not great. But that's the struggle that we face every day in this industry. But then, one of the funniest things though was, you know, I'd gotten bursaries and it had been a struggle to get through school. My mom's a domestic worker. And there was one day I got to class and I found my classmates on the floor screaming. And I said, well, what's happening here? And they said, no, the lecturer said, we must get in touch with our inner child. And I thought, I did not. This is not going to help me in my life. I'd never been told that I need to get in touch with my inner child. I need a career. I need money.
I need to be an adult.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But, and then I went to the company that had given me a bursary on one of the school holidays. And I think they were getting pressure from one of their clients to say, where are the black people in your company? So they offered me a job and they said, hey, you know, I'm not going back to that place where I have to be in touch with my inner child. And I took the job and yeah, and that's how I got employment in advertising.
And how did you find the situation race-wise, if I may be as direct as that, in the company that you stepped into? Because this was, what, 20 years ago?
20 years ago, yeah. So we were seen as if they're doing us a favor, you know. Our ideas and our thoughts, when we're rarely taken seriously. Do you know what I mean? So every day it was psychological warfare, you know. So for you to stay positive and feel that you're bringing in value. And again, you were very much a minority, you know.
Especially because you were now also young.
Yes,
and
I was going to say
have an
as well.
extra qualification.
Yes, the qualification issue wasn't really a big. It was the skin color and the age, you know. So you had to fight those battles. So every day you had to put on armor and you say, I'm going to fight. I'm not going to back down, you know. So yeah, there was a lot of that, but it wasn't all doom and gloom. There were some people who really did help, you know. There were people who were in our corner who would make sure that we don't get treated terribly. But there were those who were just there every day trying to make you feel less than, you know, and you had to survive that and still do your job. And the other thing that was a bit of a mismatch is the company and most agencies are that side of the world, Sunning Hills. So in order to get there, you have to travel really far. You know, and then
and you didn't have one of those cars in the parking lot.
And then your colleagues are just driving from Bryanston, you know, and that's who you're up against. So by the time you get to work, sometimes you're tired because there's been taxi violence, you know, or the taxi got stopped by police and it didn't have the relevant license, and now you're late and no one is trying to understand your story. But you survive through all of that, you know, when you know who you are and what you're about. Yeah.
How does one not become just angry and resentful? Because that would just dampen any creative possibilities.
Look, you know, you encourage each other. You know, you encourage each other. But yeah, I can tell you personally, I was very angry and resentful. You know, it's something that I've only recently let go of. You know, as I turned 40 last year. And that's when I thought, no, man, I can't go through life like this. You know, let me try and find a better way to go through life. But yeah, there's a lot of that anger and resentment, especially in corporate South Africa, where people just feel they're not taken seriously and they're treated like they're children. And, you know, there's no understanding or empathy of where you're coming from. And
Literally.
yeah. And that's why, I mean, a lot of us, when it's Friday, you're like, oh, at least I don't have to come back to this place for another 2 days, you know, because corporate South Africa is not a very welcoming place for black people.
Still.
Yeah, still. The conversations that we have around our homes and our brides is, I love my job, but geez, it's just hard. The people, it's actually the people that make it difficult, because they come from whatever worlds they come from, and they have their perceptions, and you have to deal with that, and you have to find each other. But some people are just block. So
Did you make really good friends with the other black guys, black people who were working there, because you shared this experience?
yes, no, like, and not just the ones that you worked with in the same agency, because the industry is pretty small. You end up knowing each other and being friends because you need each other, you know what I mean? And also the shared experiences, and that's where the encouragement also came from. Also, when you find out that, oh, it's not only me going through this, others are going through it somewhere else, and you encourage each other. And also when you move agencies and you move jobs, But a lot has changed. I mean, you see guys that I got into the industry with, holding executive positions, and they are able to now affect change. They're able to change the culture in those companies, and their approach and the sort of people that they bring in. So the older people are going out, and a new generation of leaders is coming in, and that's helping a lot. Yeah.
Tell me how you started Studio 214, your own company, your own business.
Growing up, I had no ambitions of being an entrepreneur. You grow up and you need to find a job. I mean, even the kinds of jobs I would speak to my parents about, they would just be like, be a taxi driver or something, but you need to earn a living. But
How many siblings?
There are just two of us. I've got a younger brother. But when I started working in advertising, I thought, no, I don't like this. I don't like being given instructions every single day when I have ideas of my own about how things should work. So the first time I ventured into entrepreneurship was in 2001. So having started as a junior copywriter in 1998, in 2001, I left and I started an entertainment company, right? It was meant to be an experiential marketing company, but most of our clients were alcohol brands and all they wanted were parties. So it became an entertainment company. And my business partner was a DJ, so that's what we did. And after 2 years, I thought, no, man, we're drinking too much here. I need to go get a job, a real job. I went back into advertising.
I'm sure your mother was very happy.
My mother doesn't really, has always given me the freedom to just try and work and find my way in the world. Yeah, but obviously there are things that she was unhappy about, and she became very happy when I went back and got a proper job again. Yes. And so I went back into advertising, again worked through the ranks and got to creative director. And then in 2009, I thought, all right, I think I'm ready now. And the company that I was working for had just hired a new executive creative director who didn't like me much. And so when he offered voluntary retrenchment, I said, I've been here long enough. So if I take the retrenchment, I have enough money to fund my own venture. So I took the voluntary retrenchment and started building we were freelancing, and it wasn't even Studio 214 when we started. It was called 76. No, we called June 15 first. So it was like the day before June 16, the planning. Right, yeah. Revolutionary vibes, right? And so
you and a colleague.
Yeah. There were three of us, and then two of us, the two creative partners, decided we don't want to work with that other guy anymore. So we left and we started another company called 76. Again, we were young and we were honoring the spirit of the young people who fought for change and lost their lives in 1976. And so we then partnered with other friends of ours who were also running a two-man shop called Mother Russia. they had communist ambitions, and and we became 76, Mother Russia, and then it just kept evolving and evolving. So it's been a journey of just lots of evolution, and I enjoy that about it. You know, like for instance, maybe the next time you see me, I won't be running Studio 214. I'll be doing something else, and I quite enjoy that. Yeah.
And have you managed to find clients who will trust you? And
It's again, you know, it's very tricky. You think you've got a foothold, and then something happens and you crash back down. But a big problem is the perceptions that, you know, when you walk into a room, they look at you and you're a small black company. There is a trust problem, you know. Even the marketers on the other side who would say to you, hey, you know, we would love to give you business, but you're a small company, and sometimes they'll be frank, if mostly if they're black as well, they'll say, I would give you business, but because we're both black, if anything goes wrong, I'm fired, because they're going to say,
it'll explode in my face.
So they say, if you, I would give it to a small white company because they forgive those, but if yours messes up, you get fired, I get fired. So you've got all those sorts of challenges to deal with. But again, people are becoming a bit more progressive. So you do have agencies that are starting to thrive. And so we're also not doing terribly. So it's improving, but you still have those challenges. That's why it's always funny when people complain about BE, you know, and they say, oh, black businesses are thriving. You say, no, you know, on paper, yes, you've got the big businesses that are owned by the Cyrils and the Patrices. But the average black entrepreneur has to deal with just lack of trust, people blocking, you know what I mean? So it's the small businesses are really struggling. It's the big guys that are thriving where BE is doing well. But
how is this going to change?
I think it's a very tricky question. But
Is it just time?
Look, the problem with time is that the time is now.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's time in your life.
Yes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The time is now. People need to earn now and feed their families now. You know, so I think the one thing that is important is that the legislation that is in place stays in place, the BEs and the affirmative action, and is enforced. You know, because what's amazing is that you've got companies who were forced to work with small black businesses. And now they're thriving because you bring life experiences, particularly in something like advertising, that are needed. So what people need to see is that it's actually a benefit to your business. You're not doing me a favor. I bring something to the table.
I come from the market you want to reach.
Yes. And I think the moment we stop thinking I'm doing you a favor and realizing that, no, actually, if I'm talking to these people, I need people who understand them to help me reach them effectively. You know, so I think it's a maturity issue. People just need to grow up.
Yeah, not find the inner child, not at work.
No, we need to stay young. We need to stay fun. But there are just certain things where we have to grow up. I mean, it's a similar situation with women-owned businesses and women in the corporate sector, and especially, again, black women. You know, so if I'm sitting here complaining, you know, you have no idea what our sisters and our wives and our cousins are going through. It's much, much worse for them.
Stereotyping.
Yeah. You know, so yes, stereotyping, you know what I mean? And glass ceilings and sexism. So all of that manifests itself, interestingly, in corporate South Africa, because that's the one place where we all get together and people bring their prejudices from home. You know, patriarchal men bring their patriarchy to the workplace, you know, and try and suppress women. You know, tribalists bring their tribalism to the workplace and try and suppress those who are different, and racists bring all of that to the workplace. So the workplace, I think, in South Africa is a very stressful place. You know, and I think part of my reason for wanting to do my own thing was also that. I was just like, I can't wake up and then 5 days of my life I'm dealing with this stuff. It's too much. And I know a lot of my other peers who've also started their own businesses. It was just like, I need to get out of here.
I need to shape a space where I feel
Yes.
at home and welcome.
Yes.
And do you feel like that now? When you go to the office on Monday morning, do you feel
Yes,
that I can be relaxed here?
So because your stresses are reduced,
Yeah.
your stresses are we delivering good
Yes.
product? Are we getting new clients? You know, are we doing the right thing? Not am I gonna have to deal with X, Y, and Z nonsense that is not related to what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so it has its own stresses, obviously, as a small business. You know, it's very stressful, but minus one stress. You know, I don't have someone saying to me, speak English. I don't understand you, whereas you're not even talking to them. You know, so, you know, it's all of those things. One of the things that we've tried to do with our company is encourage people to be themselves. You know, to create an environment where if you're a Tonga, you're a vendor, knock yourself out, speak whatever language, you know, and if we can understand each other, we'll try and find a common ground. But there's none of this, speak this language because I don't understand you. And I think it's important as South Africans to let each other be. You know? And if you are the one who doesn't understand it, that is your problem. You need to fix it. You know what I mean? If I am talking to person X and person Y feels left out because they don't understand person X's language, because they haven't gone out of their way to learn other languages, that's not really my problem. Do you know what I mean? We can try, but it gets to a point where we say, listen, you live here. You need to learn at least one language. We can't keep catering for you. Yeah.
Melusi, that's also the basis of your Melusi's Everyday Zulu. But it started as a fun, just venting on Facebook, really.
Its roots were actually not fun.
Oh, okay.
Its roots were, again, based on my life in advertising.
Well, that's why I say venting.
Yes.
Because I hear a note of, I'll get to you.
Yeah. But so it was, so how
I mean, when I read your pieces, you know, there's a little bit of an...
Yes, no,
Yeah.
there always has to be, you know,
Yes. Yes.
for me, with that forum, now that I've got a big audience, you know, it can't just be laughs and laughs and laughs and we don't address real issues. So it's an opportunity for me to discuss issues that are affecting us all as South Africans, packaged in a fun and engaging manner, you know.
How did it develop? Because, as I say, you just started it and then suddenly there was an audience.
So how it came about first, in advertising, when they create a radio campaign, right? Most radio campaigns start live in English, right? And then they get translated into the 10 other languages, including Afrikaans, okay? And that's fine, the translating. It's not perfect, you know, but that's fine. That's not where the real problem lies. The problem is when they go into studio to produce the actual adverts. The agency producer, the client service person, the client themselves, and the creative, who more often than not is English speaking, will go into the studio, produce the English ad, and then leave. And then the other languages have to be looked after by language supervisors and
The technical
the
people.
translators and all of that. So if you're someone like me who's multilingual, you'll be listening to a radio station that's in English and you hear an ad and it sounds awesome. And then you listen to Ukhozi FM, isiZulu, and it's the same ad, but it's of poor quality because the quality control is not the same. And that's just upsetting because
And hasn't been any creative input.
Yes.
It's a kind of faded carbon copy.
Exactly, that is it. So my thing was, so I wrote this, but also, so I wrote this article that was meant to go in the papers, putting up a business case, right, to say, clients, you need to stop working with agencies that
Who
do
do
this.
this. Yeah.
Because not only do they not care about the audience that they're speaking to, it makes no financial sense. Because
You're not getting the best product.
yes, you're spending hundreds or tens of millions on a product that no one has ensured is of high quality, of the highest quality. And when I read this article, it was quite funny, but got to the point. And then I thought, you know what? They know this stuff, right? Even though I've come from a different angle, they know this stuff, and it's just going to sound like more ranting and raving. And then I thought, okay, on Facebook, a lot of my friends are in advertising and in marketing. So let me start celebrating my language, putting respect on my language, so that they could see that there's so much beauty in our languages, and that if they treat them with respect in their jobs and their careers, amazing things could happen, right? And that's what I started doing. I would post one isiZulu word with its English equivalent or translation and a ridiculous story around it, right? Just the stories are sometimes completely mad. And it was growing steadily. I'd get like 10 new friend requests a day. I wasn't really paying attention to it, but I was doing it every day. And then this one day, I went to a meeting, and when I came out, I had about 40 friend requests on Facebook. I thought, okay, this is very strange. I don't know what's happening here, but it's fine. I went to another meeting, and I had about 100. And I thought, okay, maybe there's a glitch or my account has been hacked, but I've never heard of a hack that gives you friends. So I left it again. By the end of the day, I had about 3,000 new friend requests.
Good heavens.
And then I went into the friend requests to see what is happening here. And most of them were middle-aged white women. Okay, so I thought, okay, this is a bit odd.
I've become a pin-up in a funny space.
Yeah, I thought this is very strange, And I called a friend of mine who's a middle-aged white man. I said, listen, because you're a middle-aged white man, maybe you understand middle-aged white women. What do they want from me? And he said, maybe they just want to learn isiZulu. Maybe they like this project. I said, okay, I will take your word for it, and I'll accept these friend requests. If they turn out to be racist, and I'll just unfriend and all of that. And then someone inboxed me and said, you probably have no idea what's happening, but there was a blog that wrote about this thing that you're doing. And that's why, so I thought, all right, fine. I said, I'm going to accept these friend requests and look at the person, and then, but it all became a hassle, so I just friended everyone in one go, and I said, I'll unfriend as we go. As we speak now, I've had to set up even a different page. It sits at about 8,000 followers, and I think out of those people, I've only had to block about 20. Just for racist comments and racist attitudes. Yeah. And for me, that has been eye-opening, because as we were speaking earlier, I was angry at how we'd been treated day to day. And now here you're interacting with thousands of people of different races, because it's not just white people. And even though we don't always agree and we don't come from the same world, what's become interesting for me is that people speak from a place of respect.
Yeah. So you in turn built up a kind of stereotype.
Yes, you
of the white world.
You do, yes, you do. And so I was even saying to my friend, is it just the advertising white people? But that is not the truth. But so through these interactions, and some of my other friends' worlds have also kind of been open up with going, oh, maybe it's not as bad.
Maybe they are not as bad.
Yeah, but then we still drive in traffic and we get called the K word when someone cuts you. So South Africa has still got a long way to go. Just because there are 8,000 people who get along on some little Facebook page, it doesn't mean things are sorted. But it does give me hope, that the conversations that happen there, those people then take them into their own lives and share them with other people, and hopefully that spreads.
Tell me about ubudlelwano. I hope I'm saying it correctly.
Ubudlelwano. Ubudlelwano.
Ubudlelwano.
Yeah.
It was a bit closer, yeah.
Yeah, it was closer.
How did that happen?
Well, ubudlelwano first is the isiZulu word for relationship. It relates to eating. So ubudlelwano is breaking bread. It happened because of the interactions that I saw on my Facebook page, where people who otherwise would never talk to each other, we're talking to each other, and we're discovering things about each other, and I could see that it was helping their worldview and their lives. It sounds like this grand thing when I say their lives, but I'll give you an example. There was a time when I was jokingly threatening to shut down the page. And this one young black guy said, no, this is the only time I get to speak with white people who are not my employers. So keep the page going, right? And so this Afrikaans journalist, his name is Joe Prince. He and I got into discussion, And we said,
On the Facebook page?
yes, on the Facebook page. And we decided to set up this thing, Ubudlelwano. Ubudlelwano is once a month, people from different walks of life get together at a venue, eat, drink, and talk to each other. There is no set agenda. The agenda is you just meet new people, talk about being South African in South Africa, and see how we can take this country forward together.
How many get-togethers have you had?
We are having our fourth one. Yeah.
And
So
how have you experienced it?
it's been great. I mean, for me, because while I participate and meet and sit with different people, but I also have to observe because I'm running the thing, and you can see people's eyes opening to new worlds. Even people that I know personally, who are like, I don't trust this thing of yours. We're making me go sit with white people. They should know better already.
Yeah.
But when you sit and you speak with people, you start to gain an empathy, to say, oh, I see. I mean, for us, one of the greatest learnings was it's not that white people don't want to know about black people. It's that a lot of them just don't know where to begin. And a lot of them are scared. So when you're sitting on this side and you say someone says they're scared of you, it's offensive. Do you know what I mean? Until you sit and try and understand, what is it that you're scared of?
What does it actually mean for the other person?
Yes. So for me, it has been a lot of that. People just understanding why the other one is angry, why the other one is scared. Not to just say, you're crazy for being angry, you're crazy for being scared, but to say, even if you think it, you just try and understand. And also the other thing that we try and do is make sure that we set the tone to say, this event, this environment is not about winning anyone over. It's about listening. So, yes, we're human beings, we will argue, we will disagree, but the one thing that you should try and take out of there is that you learned something new about somebody else's world. Not that you convinced someone about your worldview. If you did that, great. But if your attitude is that you're coming here to convince people about your worldview, regardless of your age, your color, your sexual orientation, your gender, you're doing it wrong.
This is not what it's about.
It's not about that. Okay. It's about listening. And it's not just about race. It's about class. It's about education level. It's about social influence. It's about sexual orientation. So there are people who are coming there who had one perception about what a gay man is, and they found themselves sitting having a drink with this really awesome guy, only to discover that he is gay. And oh my God, I just thought gay people are this, or lesbian women are that. So it's that sort of environment. And there are some heated discussions. There are tears, but the general spirit is positive.
Yeah. Sounds absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And in your own life, you say that your wife doesn't want anything to do with the public profile.
Yes, no.
So I promise not to mention a name or anything like that, but I do want to know where you met her and how and what made you decide she was the one.
Sure.
It's my standard question.
All right. So, I mean, I was 20-something. Okay. We met at a nightclub. Okay. They say you can't find love in a nightclub. I did. we became partying partners, so I would see her where she parties and I'd go there and we'd party and eventually started dating. We dated for 8 years. And before we got married, because I had previously been engaged and I was just jaded. And not because the other person did anything wrong to me, just I wasn't interested in jumping into anything too quickly. And
what attracted you to your wife?
She had a calm about her. Even though she was fun and outgoing, she looked like someone who will help you find peace. And I needed peace in my life. So so it was an energy, and also she's extremely hot. So that didn't hurt. Do you know what I mean? But I just liked her vibe. Yeah, I liked her vibe and just how she carried herself and how she spoke to people. She was kind also, yeah. She was also kind to me. Even before she was interested in me, she was just nice.
It helps.
Yeah.
And now it's 6 years later, how many?
I think it's
How,
I think we're on our 15th or 14th year of being together.
and what keeps it going? Because you both, I think, have very busy lives. So how do you connect? How do you keep the closeness?
Look, I mean, to be perfectly honest, there are times when it's really hard,
Yeah.
where it's very tricky. But we remind each other of why the other one is special to you, and we literally sit and talk about, this is what I like about you. This is, sometimes it's hard because you like nothing about them at that time, but also it's about being practical, right? Because the love is there. I don't think people fall apart because there's no more love. I think people don't talk about the practical stuff, that even though I don't like you right now, I don't like you for X, Y, and Z, but I still love you. And then we can work on the things that you don't like about me right now, but if you don't talk, you'll think you're no longer in love. Whereas it's not that, just I don't like X, Y, and Z. So we really try. I'm more of the talker, so I have to get things out of her. Sometimes I can feel that there's a distance between us, and she doesn't like talking, so I have to, and sometimes it makes things worse because she doesn't like talking. But, sometimes I just find myself talking by myself.
And that turns another stereotype on its head, that women always talk and the man doesn't want to
Yes,
talk.
no, I'm the talker. I'll let her know very quickly if I'm not happy about something, if something doesn't work for me, and sometimes that irritates her. But we talk it out. We talk it out. Yeah.
And 3 kids, one from the previous relationship, who's now 15.
He's 15,
and
yeah.
then 2 little ones, 6
little.
and 5.
Well, the one is turning 7 now.
Oh.
So yeah, and the one is still 4. So yeah, but two.
How did they change your life, affect you, change your worldview? Maybe
the first kid, was a struggle for me. I was still partying. I was in my 20s. I didn't think I'd be a father at the time, and his mom and I ended up not being together. So that was challenging, and I'm trying to now mend the relationship between he and I. The other 2 are probably the daughter, who's the number 2, is probably when the wife and I said, okay, let's get married now. When she fell pregnant and we said, let's get married. So she's the little glue that bound us.
Yeah.
And then we've got our little boy. He's just our little baby. But yeah, the 3 of them, they're really great kids. Very sweet. I mean, even when I'm out with them somewhere at a restaurant, people literally come and compliment me on how well behaved they are. And I think, how are other people's kids? If they feel the need to compliment, but I think they're really sweet, nice kids. And they've brought a calm into our lives, because that all 3 of them, that you're living for something bigger than yourself. And I think a project such as also Melusi's Everyday Zulu is also linked to that in a way, where I'm trying to build a legacy that will live with my children forever. Coming from a poor family whose name, and I'm going to say this loosely, really stood for nothing, as many families in South Africa. For me, it was important to build something that when my children say, I am Akile Tshabalala, that they're proud and they can point that my father started this, my mother did this, that. My pride is that my mother, had the resilience and the wherewithal that through poverty and apartheid still be able to put us, because the 2 of us, put us through school and help us build futures for ourselves. But it is now our time to take it a step further than just that. Yeah.
And your home, where have you chosen to live?
I live in Fourways.
And why did you choose the house that you're in? Do you like big trees? Do you like space? Do you like light?
All I'd ever wanted was a double-story house with a swimming pool, right? And that's what I got. It was the only house with a swimming pool that was double-story that I could afford. And that's the house I got, and I've been happy there. But growing up, I mean, I'm from Soweto, we were born in Soweto. we lived in a backyard. So someone had like a little 4-room house, and then they had rooms built at the back, and that's where we lived. And all I've ever wanted was a home of my own. I mean, we eventually got a house, but you know, that never leaves you. And there's always, in the township, there's always the house at the corner owned by an entrepreneur, you know, and we have a double-story house and maybe a swimming pool. And so you grow up wanting that. So when I
It's a symbol.
Yes, when I eventually got that, you know, I was like, you know, all the efforts that my mom had put in and I put in as well, something is starting to happen. Yeah.
And how do you turn a house into a home? Because you walk in and it's empty. Or did your wife do that?
Yeah, it was it's got a lot to do with my wife, but also for me, it's not even about the adornments, or it's about the people in the home.
Yes.
You know, so my children and my wife, you know, make it a home. Even before we had children, what made it a home is that it was a place where she goes off and she does her thing. She goes to work, or she's spending time with her friends. I'm doing the same. But when we come here, it's our place of peace, of being together. Yeah. So that's what makes it a home.
Well, Lucy, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this, and I wish you well. It's a wonderful project, and you want to make, I think, a really meaningful contribution to the future for us all. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And I think for me, what's important with this project is that, you know, we have a terrible history. As a country, you have many, many angry young people. But from here, you know, we can make sure that future generations have a better history than us. But we cannot do it by being passive, you know, by just sitting there. We have to get out of our own skins, get out of our comfort zones, and go out there and speak to each other and do things that are outside of our routine, our day-to-day. So even having the opportunity to share my story, you know, is important to me, and hopefully someone will see it and it will touch their lives and inspire them to try and do something.
You have a homework, ne? Until the next time, go well.